Chicken tacos should only be trusted to chicken professionals.
That's where we come in. Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One comes with pico de gallo and creamy chipotle ranch. And the other comes with bacon, lettuce, tomato, and avocado ranch. Chicken experts since 1990. Chicken taco experts since now. Order yours today in the Zax Rewards app. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.
You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
This is the CRM Archaeology Podcast. It's the show where we pull back the veil of cultural resources management, archaeology, and discuss the issues that everyone is concerned about. Welcome to the podcast. Hello and welcome to the CRM Archaeology Podcast, episode 279 for December 13th, 2023. I'm your host, Chris Webster. On today's show, the crew talk about gifts for archaeologists and our favorite projects of 2023.
Hello, everybody. This is your guest host today, Bill White, on the CRM Archaeology Podcast, episode 279. This is our Christmas edition here, and I've got my splendid co-hosts. We're all in California. This show has essentially just degenerated into a West Coast California, conversation thing, right?
The word degenerate.
Well, I'm new to California, so that's what it feels like to me. I got my co-host Heather in California.
Hi, y'all.
And Andrew in California.
Hey guys, how's it going?
And I just put that out there blankly, right? Because I still don't know the towns yet. Like everyone who's from California, they totally know, oh, I'm from that town and I do that. And I'm like, yeah, I don't even, it's just still a backwards L-shaped blob to me.
It's fine. It's just California. Everyone thinks you surf. It doesn't matter what. You could be from the top of Mount Whitney and they're like, oh, so you surf. So, just go with it.
To all of us, it's essentially a lot like the Barbie movie. And then I moved here and I was like, now I know where they got the inspiration. Yes, it is a lot like that. It is very much like that.
Andrew, I think, you may be the only native Californian on the podcast. Yeah. Not just today, but across all of our... Think about it. Because I don't think Chris is from California. I'm from Illinois, Chicago suburbs. You're from Idaho.
Yeah. Yeah, Chris is from like the Seattle area.
Oh, there you go.
That's where he grew up. Yeah.
So you're the real Californian.
That just adds to the joke, though, because that is the joke about California, that nobody's actually from California. Yep. So, I am the lone native Californian on the, and I wear it with pride. Yeah. More or less, kind of, sort of. Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
A little,
you're welcome.
A little bit of trivia. My family, whether probably people don't care, but whatever.
I care. I want to know. Yeah, I want to hear it, man. I'm a historian. I like it.
Oh, thank you. So my ancestors actually came over here on the Oregon Trail to California. And then they were not smart enough to realize how expensive property would be here eventually.
Yeah.
So they left and went back to Illinois.
Whatever.
And then I moved here in the late 90s and now... Yeah. But if they had stayed here.
Exactly.
Oh.
Exactly. They could have bought all of Huntington Beach. They could have.
Well, they actually. So I've been having fun tracing my lineage and doing this with my dad. It's been a fun adventure for the two of us. And they had property all over Sacramento River Valley. I'm just like,
wow.
Now, it's not like they had property in Santa Barbara, which would have been helpful to me now, but...
Come on.
But it's something.
Only Sacramento. Oh,
I'm laughing at the picture of Heather's family going back east. Like, you're not going to like it. Like, what do you turn around? Turn around. What are you doing? Not going to like it. There's one wagon going east and a whole train of people going west. Like,
yes. Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Someone to try to like go back.
The traffic's great though. The traffic's great on this side on the way.
They were the first Californians to not get stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
That's That's funny.
Oh man, I'm glad we're having this conversation because I always liked the Christmas episode, and I was mentioning we haven't done Christmas episodes in a while,
right?
But I think it's good. I think we should bring it back, and so kind of have a lighthearted conversation. But one of the things we were talking about is how fast the month's already going by, and this episode is going to come out on the 12th of December, but we're recording it on the 3rd, and so we were just talking about, man, it's already the 3rd of December, and it seems like just yesterday morning, we're already 72 hours in, and boy, we have a lot of stuff on our plates and a lot of things come and due at the end of the year. This always was a super intense time in CRM because January 1st is this like major deadline. And so a lot of projects really have to get done. And, people are kind of really working hard. Plus, the Christmas, we deserve a time to relax for the holidays, whether you celebrate Christmas or not. It's this gap where all of us kind of take a breather, except in CRM. That means you got to just do everything 1 week earlier.
Like I even had to think to myself, should I do the podcast this morning or should I work?
Well, I mean, it's so bad at the university here at UC Berkeley. They literally say that there's, a time when they're just going to turn off the heat in the buildings to force the professors not to work and the grad students not to work. And seriously, I see people in there. There's lights on, in those offices during that time. People are still working anyway, I guess in the cold or whatever, right? So they're trying to force everyone to get it done, but then that just pushes all of our activities a week earlier. So these first couple weeks of December end up being the super intense time. Yeah. And the other thing we were talking about is pay rates, right? Because now I get paid once a month. And so, the 3rd of December, everything looks rosy and awesome. But I was joking about how the 12 days of Christmas when you work for Cal are the 1st of January, the 1st of February, the 1st of March. Those are the 12 days for us because we only get paid once a month. And I also remember how when I first started doing cultural resources, my first company, when I was living in Seattle, I also got paid once a month. And it was a real wake up call to try to find a way to budget to make it all the way through those 30 days without running out of money. And I also remember when I first moved to Seattle, my wife, I was dating her then. She also was like trying to find a new job and transitioning from her existing job to a new one. And so there was just this time period that was about 6 months or so where we were just living on my archaeology crew chief wages. I got paid once a month in Seattle. And, she would work for a while and it wouldn't be the job for her. And then she'd quit and find another one. And she was constantly looking for new jobs and did several different things before she finally found a position that was, steady and paying a livable wage. So there was this time period I remember where it was kind of like we were joking about it. I was joking with Andrew just now before the show about that scene where Mickey Mouse and Goofy are cutting one bean into thin slices with Donald Duck and just eating, each person gets one slice, of beans because it just got so tight there at the end of the month. And I know I'm not the only one. I mean, there's, all of us have had to adapt in some way. So, what are some of the adaptations you all have made to try to make ends meet?
Oh man, like my adaptations always just don't work. And it's funny in the CRM world, it was kind of the opposite from like in CRM.
Your adaptation is to not work, or your adaptations don't work?
Don't work. My adaptations don't work.
I thought work
like, well, that's unique.
No, so what happens? What's funny is back in my CRM days, I used to be really worried about the winter break, as I'm sure so many of us are, because it's like the jobs narrowed down. Sometimes they stop and like, hey, November 15th, and we're done until whatever. But I was lucky enough that I always tended to have like a bunch of overtime or whatever right around then. So I'd get like this lump, like right before. And so I could make it through the holidays. Okay. But now as a college professor, I'm like, Bill, I only get paid once a month. And then to add insult to injury, I usually get paid the 31st, but in Christmas, and both my wife and I are college professors, right? So we get paid like the 22nd of December. So as I was joking before, the stretch through late January is freaking terrible. And just please, nobody come visit me. Nobody talk to me around January 25th, because it's just, there's nothing. And I try and budget. I'm thoughtful about this kind of stuff, thoughtful about money. But I'm telling you, I always get hammered right at the end. So I will say I've gotten a little better over the years, but it's just this unstretchable gulf, because Christmas comes, you spend all your money on Christmas presents or whatever. You think you're okay, but it is the toughest time of year for me is the end of January.
The two things that I would add to the conversation. Number one, for those that are managers, please try to be conscious of this, how difficult January or December and January can be. So when you are scheduling your people, specifically your as-neededs, make sure that there is a lot, just like Andrew said, there's a lot of overtime out there, and that you spread out the wealth, and that you don't just be lazy about it. Like, you really look and consider that these people are relying on you, not just to survive, but to enjoy their holidays. And so, I try to look at the bigger picture, everybody that's working for us, checking in with them. I care about our as-neededs on-call staff as much as I do our full-time and part-time staff. So, and we know as a team, we know them all well. And so definitely working towards making sure that you're being fair and that you are, parsing out your work appropriately, and look at what projects have the potential of overtime, what budgets can handle that, and making sure that you're being fair with it. That would be one thing. And then for me, it's not as bad as it used to be. It's, I worked hard to get to a point where I'm not at the same situation I was 10 years ago, right? But I think that there's some cost saving measures when it comes to gifts. Like, you have to consider your budget, and there's, you always want to give these grand gifts. But I think just being a little bit more creative with your gifts. There's so many people that have that like side gig or creative, giving gifts that you make. Or the one thing that I think I wish I had thought of, and I probably should do it now, but I'm just not in the field as much, is we all take the most amazing pictures because we're in these really cool, areas that we don't, get to see very often, or other people wouldn't get to see very often. And making a picture book is a really inexpensive, and we'll talk about that later in the podcast, but just looking at creative ways to give gifts. And you can't ignore the fact that in January, you're going to have all these bills to pay that, on credit cards and whatnot. And also trying to buy gifts without using your credit card.
Yeah, that's huge.
A biggie.
I'm glad you mentioned that. And I'm also glad you mentioned the picture book idea. My neighbors went on a family trip to Egypt, and one of the relatives made this great picture book of all their pictures and had it printed off and sent it to the grandparents, and they had it at their house. And I was like, man, I can't believe that you can just format and make these things so easily now, because there was it was an online public. Yeah, it's a hardback book with a cover. And, they were saying that each one was, $17 or $27 each or something like that. Yep. And, because they got 8 or 9, I think they got a discount even more. And so I just thought it was a really cool way to, make that trip memorable and to make a picture album. And it looks like an actual book. Like, I mean, the photos in there are just from people's phones, and they were able to just stylishly put it together. So I'm glad you said that, because I really wish that I had, well, they didn't really have the technology, but I really wish I had picture books of some of the projects I'd worked on before. Yeah. Because that would have been, something really great, a great keepsake. Mm-hmm. You were talking about credit cards and everything. The other thing, I used to work with this man, John Hall. He still does archaeology. He always saved all of his per diem. He always saved it. He always ate in the hotel room. And I think maybe once per week when we were out, we would go out to dinner. And when I first started doing archaeology, I treated the per diem like, I'd take my wife on dates and, get flowers and get, extra junk that I didn't need and buy all this stuff. And then, after a few years and I worked with him, he was, helping put his wife through college, and a huge chunk of it was coming from these per diems. So he was always interested in taking those jobs out of town because he could get per diem. And then he always just ate in the hotel room. And I started following that, and I've done all kinds of stuff. So when I was doing cultural resources all the time, that per diem a lot of times became that Christmas money for my kids and the Christmas, travel money. So, that's another huge one. If you are getting any per diem, you're going to eat anyway. So just find a way to eat at your hotel room. We've already talked about this before on the podcast, but Christmas could be a time that you use that money.
Yeah. For what got me through when I was, tech was my side gig. I referee ice hockey, and that was a game changer for me. So, you just have to, sometimes you have to supplement and look at creative ways.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that too, because, my mom's married to a man who used to umpire little league games on the weekends. And so he worked full time and just umpired little league games and saved the money for years and ended up buying this house, like putting a down payment on it. Of course, he had to, supplement with his own wages and everything. But that was really a big thing for he and his family to get their first house together where his kids had a home. And it came from, being a little league umpire.
If anybody has any kind of sports background, even if you don't, if you have a sports knowledge, that is a really good way to have a side gig, and you can actually do it anywhere. So you can just call up signers are always, it's just across for, we say archaeologists. It's hard to find archaeologists right now. It's also hard to find sports officials. Yeah. They're at a premium right now. So, get into that. Sometimes it's just a matter of one day. And then even if you're traveling, like sometimes you're traveling, you can't go home and you stay at a hotel over the weekend, you can, get a lot of games and be making money on the weekend as well.
And with things like basketball and baseball, those little league games and those junior league games are during the week too sometimes. So if you're not in the field, you can do a couple of those in the evening. Or also, I know that this is actually one of those many jobs my wife used to do. Adult, pickleball and volleyball leagues, they just had a selection of different people. And it was, back then like $15 or $25 per game that they that they refereed. And so it was kind of up to you. And there was just this list of people and you'd click on the days that you could do it. And then they would say, okay, show up to this park. You're going to do 3 volleyball games. And, that was just another thing that she did. And she went all over Seattle and, did all kinds of different, they teach you the rules of the game.
They do.
So you just kind of
train you.
Yep. Watch the volleyball, watch tennis match, basketball, they'll teach you, and it's rec league. So, I can see when it's little league, sometimes the parents can get kind of nuts out there, but I'm thinking this is not like NCAA football here. Like your kid doesn't have a scholarship. They're 9. It's a foul ball. I'm the umpire. It just is a foul ball. Go to your car. I guess actually, this is a good time for me to say that we're going to go to break. I'll stay out of my car. Those bad parents, they can go to their car. I don't care. It's a foul. It is. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Is your vehicle stopping like it should? Does it squeal or grind when you brake? Don't miss out on summer brake deals at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Chicken tacos should only be trusted to chicken professionals.
That's where we come in. Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One comes with pico de gallo and creamy chipotle ranch. And the other comes with bacon, lettuce, tomato, and avocado ranch. Chicken experts since 1990. Chicken taco experts since now. Order yours today in the Zax Rewards app. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's. Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One with pico and creamy chipotle ranch, and the other with bacon and avocado ranch. Chicken experts since 1990. Taco experts since now. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.
All right, everybody, welcome back. CRM Archaeology Podcast, episode 279. This is the Christmas episode. I don't have any of those jingle bell sounds things. I just noticed watching commercials that there's always jingle bells whenever they talk about any kind of Christmas anything. So
Chris could put it in.
Yeah, when Chris edits this, I hope he adds some jingle bell sounds for our Christmas episode. So we were talking about, finances and everything. That's like an unlimited topic. I
Discussion.
Yeah, I really wish we could have some kind of more open conversations, maybe not on the podcast or whatever, about people's finances, because that is one thing that I'm starting to get more and more attuned to. Maybe it's because my kid's 13 and I'm thinking about college, right? So I'm like adding up my little pennies and being like, looks like this kid is going to get his own job.
Yeah.
But, we were also talking a little bit about using that cash to try to get gifts for folks, thoughtful things, for during Christmas season. And I remember that holidays was a major time when I'd ask my family for stuff that I couldn't afford when I was working, things that I needed, shoes and stuff was a lot of times, or gift certificates to get backpacks. I don't know why, but Washington just eats up your backpack. The next thing you know, you just have a bag of water on your back. That place just consumes them. But now that I've moved a little bit further and I'm the one who's buying gifts for other archaeologists, there's a couple of things I like to get for students, especially when they graduate. I taught this class this last semester that was essentially an attempt to teach everything that I could about being an archaeological field technician without having to go to field school. So everything except for digging, right? And so they're working on their final project. Their final project is a draft of a California state site form. So that's what they're trying to get done for the last couple of weeks. But when folks finish school and they decide that they want to go on to do archaeology, there's a couple of things that I buy. And one of the things I get them as like a graduating gift is a compass with a mirror.
Yes. That's a nice professor.
Yeah. I taught...
Andrew, you never got me one of those.
Figure it out. Get your own job. Get your own goddamn compass. You know what I would add to this? What's so funny, Bill, is that was on my list too, is a compass. But I just want to say, along with the mirror, make sure it has an adjustable declination.
Yeah.
And that I even did a YouTube video on this because people ask me so much. And there's the great Sunto versus Silva debate.
Ooh.
And the short answer is, so they're the two big brands.
Yeah, I know, but
right. So the short answer is it's fine. If you're a parent getting this for a student or whatever, either brand is fine. It's the adjustable declination thing that matters.
Yes.
It's around $50, give or take. But I do find the Sunto brand is nicer overall than the Silva brand. That's all. That's what I would say. They're very similar in price, but your mileage may vary there. Yeah. That was my bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because also the other thing too that I want folks, that are getting these compasses to think about is that it's a magnetic compass. And so sometimes some backpacks have that chest strap that has a little magnet on it.
Oh yeah.
And if you have it hanging around your neck and you've got a backpack with that, maybe you should just keep it in your pocket, right? Like maybe you should not have it around your neck all the time because that little magnet could be interfering with it. And then the other thing, the bubble, and I never have gotten clear confirmation, like when you're going from sea level and you go to high altitude, or if you fly with your compass, sometimes it has a bubble in it. Do you all know how to get that thing out?
I don't think you can. I think you just live with it, because it's a bubble inside the oil that's in there.
I know. And so sometimes if you fly with it, sometimes it'll just go back when you get back to sea level. It'll just, the bubble just absorbs and it goes away. Maybe someone who's listening to this can give me more information about like how you can get it out or whatever, because I worked with someone who one time was like, oh God, this thing is rubbish now because it's got a bubble in it. And I was kind of like, well, we're out here. And so this is the compass you have. I don't know what else to say. Like, we're going to have to use it. And working with other folks, you got 4 or 5 people, they all have compasses. If yours has a bubble in it, I never noticed that it was like an insane amount of difference. I know that if your declination is off, then you really need to adjust it because you're going to really screw things up and be running into people in the middle of the desert because you're not following the right bearing anymore because your thing is off. But the bubble one, I don't know. So you're saying it doesn't affect it, or
I haven't?
I don't know.
I've never noticed an effect. I've gone pretty deep down into the mapping world, but I could be wrong. This could be something new to. I mean, I do have a PhD, okay, and it was largely on archaeological survey, okay, but I can be completely and utterly wrong, but in my experience, and I've had some compasses with some medium bubbles in them, and it didn't seem to affect the situation because I would think the compass just works based on magnetism and the bubble would be immaterial. It just might affect its sweep being not as smooth or something like that.
Yeah, because it'll be kind of rocky, right? Yeah. When the bubble, it'll push it down and move it. But once the bubble gets out of the way, then, and you can also like move your compass slightly over so the bubble goes over and then your arrow is still pretty true.
And in seriousness, I've had compasses with bubbles in it, and I've gone a long way, in the jungle, and I've gotten to the correct spot with the.
Okay.
So in my one person experience on that, it seemed to be fine. But I would be curious to see if it makes any difference.
Yeah, I don't know enough, I guess. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, like, too, because it's not just that, like, sometimes they aren't reading right. I don't know what to say. Like, sometimes the magnet just, like the needle over years or something like that. It seems to me like sometimes it's off, and you'll have one that's kind of brand new and one that's a little bit older, and it's just like 1 or 2 degrees off. So I'm in the habit of my son's in the Boy Scouts too. So we've got like just stacks of compasses basically at this point. Right. Cause they have a bubble. I buy one, then I bring it back to sea level. Then it doesn't. I'm like, oh, this thing's good to go, and put it in a backpack. There's like one for every, here, you can take one. I take one.
Yeah.
And then buying them for students too. I got some that are in the package still ready for them to graduate. They can take it and go, right? Because once again, I get paid once a month. So
yep.
they graduate at the end of a month, and I won't get paid until they'll already be out there. Yeah. So the other thing too that I tend to get now, and I'm going to get more often, because the company for a little while there just like wasn't around, or I tried to buy one once and I couldn't find it, but the weather writer or the paper dry clipboards, man, the ones that has the little raising and lowering lid that you can see through. For the class that I taught this last semester, I bought like 10 of them. And then I put some of another word on the compasses too. On Amazon, there is a wide range of products.
Yes.
Those like $14 mirrored compasses are not as good.
Bad.
Those things are really crummy. Now, they were good for the class because we were only walking about 30 or 40 yards. And it was really about people learning how to set the declination and do all this stuff. But I'm not joking. Like, they had bubbles in them. They were like wildly off the clinometer to figure out the angle. The vertical angle was like off by 20, 30 degrees. They're really crappy. You should go with what Andrew was recommending, a Sunto or a Silva.
Yep.
One of those ones, like, pay $50, $60, $70 on one of them. Don't buy the $14 one, that I got. I got a bunch of them, and they're really crappy, but they'll do the job for this class. I would not want to have that for my actual career. Now, on the other hand, Amazon does have a bunch of those kind of weather writer clipboard type things. And if you check it out, we'll try to put links to these things in the show notes. But if you do look on Amazon, there is a huge range, and those ones didn't seem like the quality was that bad to get the cheaper, $20 one over the $40. But I'm telling you, I buy those. Over time, sadly, the plastic gets brittle and it kind of cracks. So you do have to keep buying them, especially if you're using them every single day. But the clipboard, I know we're moving into, Chris is probably going to, freak out when he hears that I'm even recommending a clipboard for paper, right? That you would even in any way need paper in the future.
I'm with you, Bill. A clipboard is great.
A $20 clipboard.
Simple clipboard is fantastic.
There's still a roll.
Yeah, sure. Exactly.
I make all my students get one. Come on.
Okay. Yeah. So those are the two things that for Christmas, if I'm giving them out to presents to archaeologists or whatever, or if you're thinking about getting a present for another archaeologist, those are two things that you should definitely think about. I mean, I use them all the time. I've been using them for 15, 20 years. Both of those items, they're really good archaeology tools. Yep.
Another compass is the Brunton.
Yes.
They're good. They do tend to be pretty pricey, but
cha-ching. But they are amazing, but super expensive.
Yeah. But if you want to get to that next level, mom and dad want to get you a really nice one, but get them like some kind of carrier or something so that they don't leave it on some rock somewhere on a field day. That's never fun. So I have three, but I guess should we just give one each and go around, or just I'll give all three?
Oh yeah, go ahead and lay three on us. Okay. We can handle it.
Okay, so the one was the picture book. We're going to put the link in the show notes. I'll give a few suggestions, but you can be paying, like Bill said, as little as $11.99 for these books, and then they can go up from there. But these are books that you don't even have to be creative. If you're not creative, and you can go like two different ways. You can say, okay, you know what? People may not. There's mom and dad and grandma and grandpa that are going to want to see you in the pictures, but maybe there's friends that you really want to give a nice gift to, and you could take yourself out, and it's just a scenery book of some like we do some surveys in some pretty cool areas that other people would never even get these shots, right? And sometimes we just get these shots by accident. So you'd be surprised, even if you're not somebody who's always taking those like scenery shots, you may have some pretty good ones in there. And that would be something. And then you don't even have to be creative. Like I said, you can just give the pictures to these programs and they will create them for you. They'll create kind of a mosaic. They'll format them and put them in different, interesting formats and different sizes and stuff. And then if you want, you can put little captions on it, but you can get as creative or not as you want to. That's an easy gift. I would say you need to I would do that a couple weeks before Christmas, also, unless you're shipping, maybe even a little bit earlier than that. But that is a good gift. My next gift is REI. I mean, I'm sure there's others that have these classes, but I think REI is really great. If, we talk about this on the podcast quite a bit, where people are not, unfortunately, not everyone has Andrew or Bill as their professor, and they're not learning the skills that they need to learn in order to go into the field. So they had these great, like I'm right now on their site, they have a backcountry navigation and map and compass class. They have winter navigation with a map and compass. They have just the regular map and compass workshop. And these range from about $30 per class to $80 per class. So if you hear, or maybe even your giftee is just starting out and, it doesn't hurt. So our navigation, there's different types of navigation. So what an archaeologist does is different than, let's say, military and how they navigate. But understanding and having a good practice with a compass and maps will help you no matter what situation you need navigation for. So that, I think, is another good gift, and it's not expensive. And then for the ladies, sorry, men, but I have to do it because I'm the only lady on the podcast. So for the ladies, I found out there is a new, I think they're a few years old, but there's this company called Nara. I think it's spelled Gnara. And they have what do they call it? They have a certain name for it. It is called She Fly Go There Pant. It is a pair of field pants. They're stretchy. They're made out of that nice material that you do not have to drop your drawers to go to the bathroom in the great outdoors. And there's some pretty good reviews on it. So that might be a good option for a gift for your female archaeologist. And those are my three.
I love it.
Cool. Yeah. Those are good. And Heather, I love the REI thing too. I didn't realize that, and there's so many students now who've taken so many classes online. Like I've actually had a student who's in my field class. She has her BA, but it was entirely online. She got in touch with me a while back and she was like, Kinkella, I want some on ground experience. So she's taking the on ground classes just to get the experience. Great. Yeah. And I think the REI thing can do that same thing for people. It's like, no,
it's in person. Yeah. They take you out and teach you.
That's awesome.
So I think, and I'm sure there's other options, but REI, I mean, their classes are pretty good.
Yeah.
And they're taught by people who are true outdoors people.
Totally. Yeah. I think
and they have a lot of stores, right? So,
they do. Yeah.
50% at least of us live within a, range of an REI store.
Yeah.
I actually worked on a project where we were taught how to rappel. Because we had to rappel into certain areas. So, which is just, liability central, but we did have to do it. And so that was really fun, but that might be an option. You can probably, I would say 50% at least of archaeologists are pretty good or outdoors people. And even if it's not practical to every archaeology project, it certainly would be a fun class too. So
totally,
like rappelling classes and that sort of thing would be a great gift.
Yeah.
Well, and I remember when I lived in Tucson too, our wilderness first aid class was pretty much through REI.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's good. So for, I guess me, I got to do my, my three, man. So, Yeah, I think Heather's is great. I think, Bill, the compass is great. I had that on here. Oh, just to the listeners, the difference between a Sunto and a Silva, those are around the $50 world. A Brunton compass, which are awesome. God, I think they've got to be $300 or in that realm. I will say they exude quality. I remember my Brunton compass, it had a leather pack, like a little leather envelope sort of that it came in, and I swear to God, that was the thickest, most supple. Like, they killed a major cow for that leather. So it
will last you your whole career. A Brunton will seriously last you.
Quality. It felt like it was made by a cobbler in London in
Austria.
like 1910. Yeah, it's
Right.
like, it was so nice. Just so you know, other things on my list, I just have sort of a grab bag of things. These tend to be a little bit more expensive, but like a Munsell book is kind of nice to have, but they're
about
up,
200.
Yeah, 200 or so. But man,
you can
it's
buy the
nice
sheets.
Yeah, you can get individual sheets, 10 and 7.5. Those are two solid pages.
Oh my God,
solid pages.
It's a cheaper way to go.
But those that, any archaeologist has been working out for a while, you know what it's like if you just have your own, you don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
I would even let, this is another one for sort of the advanced archaeologists who would drive to a site, in their truck, a breaker bar. You you don't need a breaker bar until you're the hero who has a breaker bar.
Yeah.
That's under 50. Yeah, that's definitely
that
even under 40. Yeah.
Steel bar. It's called in a Home Depot thing. It's called a San Angelo bar.
Right.
If you type in breaker bar, Home Depot doesn't know what it is. It's called a San Angelo bar. Is its real name.
But the big one, the bigger the better. Get the big ass.
With the pointy on one side and flat on the other.
Yeah.
And those can be ground, by the way. You can sharpen those.
Yeah.
Yep.
Whoa.
Those it's like you will use it once every 3 years, but damn when you do.
Depending on where you work, you can use it.
There'll be a point where you then use it all the time. And then let's see, is that my 3? Oh, I did have one more. This is another one that comes in handy, like a little sunshade, like a wiki up like sunshade. They're as cheap as like idea. From your Home Depot or whatever. The cheapest ones are about $60. They do fall apart over time, but they'll last for a while. And if you guys get it, they're about, they're about 6 feet by 6 feet or so, maybe 8 feet by 8 feet. Anything in that range works fine. It's just those sunshades that pop up, 4 legs. The more you spend, the higher quality it'll be. But those are nice. You're in an area.
You can guarantee that your giftee will be hated by everybody else in the field while they're sitting under a sunshade and everybody else is sweating it out. But, whatever.
Dude, if you're in a place where you're just working like day to day, week by week, it's always sunny. It's nice to just be able to bust one of those out every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are good choices. Yeah, because if you can bring those things with you, I mean, those, because they are, like you said, brittle, they do break, like the plastic joints on them snap, right? So that's always legs, this weakness.
The legs have such crappy metal that once they bend, they don't hold. But
so it's always like, do you get the cheapie knowing that at the end of the project, that's pretty much the end of it? Or do you try to cobble them together for a while? I don't know. I'm kind of on the try to get the better one and cobble it along.
I would.
To not throw away a metal and, not throw yet another thing away. But then you spend a whole bunch of time drilling and using wire to rebuild these plastic joints to build. But I mean, either which way, if you got them, you got them. You know what I'm saying? And if you have the option to be out of the sun, in a place like Arizona or the Virgin Islands, do it. All right. Those are quite a few options. I think those are pretty good, affordable, choices that are really useful for archaeologists. I think this is also a good time for us to take a short break, and we'll come back with our last segment.
Save on O'Reilly Brake Parts Cleaner. Get 2 cans of O'Reilly Brake Parts Cleaner for just $8. Valid in-store only at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Chicken tacos should only be trusted to chicken professionals.
That's where we come in. Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One comes with pico de gallo and creamy chipotle ranch. And the other comes with bacon, lettuce, tomato, and avocado ranch. Chicken experts since 1990. Chicken taco experts since now. Order yours today in the Zax Rewards app. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.
Shop Plato's Closet tax-free August 2nd through 4th for back-to-school styles. We sell the trendy, gently used styles you need to make a difference in the world and in your wallet for back-to-school shopping. Save up to 70% off regular retail prices by choosing recycled styles. Save even more when you shop tax-free this weekend. Make a change that others can respect and repeat. Shop Plato's Closet in North Charleston and West Ashley this year for your back-to-school looks. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.
Okay, welcome back. We're in the final segment of episode 279 of the CRM Archaeology podcast. We just talked about great holiday gifts for folks to use out in the field, but now, maybe we're getting close to the end of the year. I think it might be a good time for us to kind of talk about some of the projects or some of the sites that we heard about or worked on, or maybe some of the things that we did in the last year that, we really like. We're inspired. We want to learn more, and that they were really interesting, and we're proud of doing them. Andrew has a site or a project he wants to talk about. I'll let him go first.
Sure. So I reflected and thought about this a little bit, and I have to be honest, for this year, the favorite project that I was a part of was actually the El Pilar project, which is in Belize, right? So, and the reason for this is many-fold, but the short backstory is the El Pilar is a large Maya site in Belize. It's actually on the Belize-Guatemala border, right? Where most of it's in Belize, but some of it's in Guatemala. And it does have that appeal of a huge Maya city in the jungle, right? That whole thing, a bit difficult to get to, right? All that. But it was the very first project that I worked on in 1993. The very first time I ever dug a 1x1 was on the El Pilar project. But of course, since then, since being a field school student, I went onward. I worked on different things and, just continued my career in different places at different times. But in the last handful of years, I got in touch with the original archaeologist, Annabelle Ford, who works at El Pilar. And I've been working with her once a week. I go up to Santa Barbara, and I've been working on the El Pilar material. And I think we all know as archaeologists, there's certain things that we just do day to day or week by week. They're part of the job, and they're still fun, and they're still worthwhile, and they still make us feel good. But every so often you get to work on a project where, man, it's just inspiring. And that's what the El Pilar project is for me. I look forward to my once a week when I go, and a lot of the times it's just real minutia stuff in the lab, right? Dealing with the old artifacts from the past, like 2 decades or so of research that's been done there, dealing with the old paperwork, the maps. It's really bringing everything together to tell the story of El Pilar. So as I get to do it, I get to reminisce. Every so often I'll find a piece of paperwork that I filled out in 1996. It's a time where I can let my mind wander and really just get the joy from archaeology, and just be like, wow, I'm working on a classic period Maya site. This is awesome. And even though I'm just sitting at a table, sorting some sherds or I'm on a computer, going through some paperwork, there's that connection of that wonder and that joy, right? The reason we got into this stuff in the first place. So that's my vote, just working on the research aspect of the El Pilar project from Belize. There you go. That's mine.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, those kind of projects, they're ultra rare to come across. And it's really cool that you had fond memories, and then you come back and you still actually have those same memories, right? Yeah,
it's funny. And I'm like a different person, because it's been 20 years. It is. I'm like an old man looking at a young man's thing and going, oh, he didn't do too bad. Serious. It's very interesting.
All right. I hope you're talking about your other people's paperwork, not just your own, right? They're all rubbish, but wow.
All the rest of them
genius
are
here, Oh yeah.
Bill, you are talking about Andrew, right?
Yeah, I know. And he's in charge of grading people's papers. And
mine were the best. No, they weren't. In seriousness, one thing that really made me happy is, as a whole, when I look through, these were my fellow students, right? I'm like, man, all this stuff is really good. We really tried, you can see a bunch of young people who really gave it their best shot. So I'm very proud of that group of people who did that stuff at that time. So it's very enjoyable.
Yeah, that's really cool to see that and to hear that too. Yeah. The one that I'm thinking of right now is we just finished the last year of excavations at Estate Little Princess in the Virgin Islands, the Society of Black Archaeologists and I. And this was, the fourth year, and it wasn't the easiest year, but we had some great, discoveries. It was worth it to go back for yet another year. And then, just to think about over the last few years, that was a project that we started before the pandemic. And it was like when the pandemic began and we couldn't go to the field anymore, we were kind of like, so are we ever going to finish this thing? I mean, we had plans to come back and do things, but we didn't know for 2 years if we were ever going to come back and if that was going to be it. But fortunately, we were able to come back last year and finish up this year. And so it's 4 years of work. And some of the folks who worked on the project, they went into CRM, they went and got graduate degrees, not because it's a field school. Not all the people went into archaeology, but it's really cool to see that folks who started in the very beginning are now like ABD, almost going to finish their dissertation. And it came from that project. But also just really cool to, work with people that I like, that I had a great time with my colleagues there, and, that we're still buddies and that didn't break everything to pieces just by hanging out with each other in the, Caribbean sun for days and days, right? That we still like each other after 4 years. Just, I haven't been on a project like that before where folks grew and enjoyed it, and we moved through and we found a lot of really great stuff, and connected with people that I'll have friends for as long as they'll have me. And just it's the kind of project, like you were saying, that is why I got into archaeology and why I like doing it. And so that's just kind of a bittersweet end to this project. I don't know what the next thing is going to bring. I know that I won't be running a field school, but I'll work on someone else's field school. I'll work on Andrew's field school, but I don't know about me running it anymore, man.
No, I'll work on yours. Okay, no, I work on yours.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And I'm also kind of realizing that I should transition more to like having that kind of thing happen in class, and then just hire students to do survey, so that it's a job.
Yeah,
because it gets more mileage than the field school thing. And anyway, just really, that's the project that I think of in 2023 that, that's the one that I'm proud of and that I enjoyed being on.
Totally. That's cool. Pulls at the heartstrings in the best possible manner. Like, I love those. It's great.
Well, for me, it's tough from a CRM perspective. I think we have, confidentiality issues. So I can't share probably my most favorite, but I will say that it's one experience that I had where there was a site that, I think a lot of people have put in their mind as that's where they would like to work. And it's in the Santa Barbara Channel region. And I was very excited to have the opportunity that there was a project or a construction going on within this known site. And so being able to do a data recovery, I'm just trying to be careful, but being able to do a data recovery. And I think that it was a really good lesson as archaeologists, when we build up certain sites in our head as being the end all be all of what we're going to, that we're going to experience something really neat. And it ended up being a real dud. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because it didn't end up being exciting at all. Like there was so much disturbance. It was not in an area which is good. That's a good thing, right? For the resource, that's a good thing. But I had built this up in my head because it's one of the premier sites anywhere. I mean, like people would give their left arm to work on this site, and it literally came out like, bah, bah, bah.
I love that story though. I love it. We've all done it. Oh my God. What a bummer though. Whoa. Yeah,
but then we had a surprise. It was just one of those, it was just a residential project, and it was within a site. It's a very large site, coastal site in Santa Barbara County. And really, there's been a lot of work done there. And so it was kind of going through the motions, not on my end, but for people in general, just the agency and everything. Oh, yeah, I got to do a data recovery. And it was a supplemental data recovery, right? Because there's so much information known. But we actually found some amazing stuff there. And so I think it's a really good, it's a good reminder that you never know what you're going to come across. We had a couple of years ago, we had another like unbelievable find, which eventually I'll publish on. And I think it's going to be incredible. It really will add to the area's knowledge. But it's, it's just a reminder. Don't just have in your head what you think something's going to be. And, did we still learn something from that project that was kind of a dud? We did, because what isn't there is still contributing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Totally.
So it's just not that sexy stuff. But then a few months earlier, I had gotten that sexy type projects that I had not expected. So, I think that always keeping your mind open and never assuming, and that is one thing, especially with data recovery, is that, you can't assume that you're going to find something, especially when you're working in a known site. You always have to come in fresh with no expectations, although as people, we're going to do that, but try to keep them at bay, because it will bias the way you work. So, but anyway, so that's my story.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's great to kind of have this. I think we'll have one more episode before the end of the year, but it's good to kind of see this thing, move full circle while, understanding that it's never super easy to be an archaeologist, but there is reasons why we're doing it. And in every year, since I've been doing this, there's always been some kind of museum I went to, or some kind of, thing I read that I heard about a site that I had no idea about, that I was super interested in. Or even when I was doing archaeology, I was out in the field, I actually was in a site and we found really cool stuff. So there's just always more things to motivate you to keep going on further. And, the tools that you have out there, the things that you get for archaeologists, they're tools, they're presents, but they also help maintain that dream, that whole goal of us finding these really cool sites, working at really cool places, and just keeping it moving forward. And I do think that at the end of the day, that's why we're doing all that stuff, because we're the ones who really want to be there. We want to make those discoveries, and it's not going to happen if you're not in the right place, which is why you stick with archaeology until you're done doing it. Right. Mm-hmm. I think that this is a good place to end the show. I appreciate everyone listening till the end of the show. If you have any questions, if you have any more Christmas present suggestions, right? Because we don't know all the stuff that exists out there. What are you using in the field, and what do you enjoy? What did you like getting as a present, and what do you like to give to other people for the holidays as a gift? I think this is a good way to end here. So I'm just going to say goodbye until the next episode.
See you guys next time.
Goodbye.
I never know how to end it.
I know. It's always me too. It's so tough.
That's it for another episode of the CRM Archaeology Podcast. Links to some of the items mentioned on the show are in the show notes for this podcast, which can be found at www.arcpodnet.com/CRMArcPodcast. Please comment and share anywhere you see the show. If you'd like us to answer a question on a future episode, email us. Use the contact form on the website, or just email chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com. Support the show and the network at arcpodnet.com/members. Get some swag and extra content while you're there. Send us show suggestions and interview suggestions. We want this to be a resource for field technicians everywhere, and we want to know what you want to know about. Thanks to everyone for joining me this week. Thanks also to the listeners for tuning in, and we'll see you in the field. Goodbye. This episode was produced by Chris Webster from his RV traveling the United States, Tristan Boyle in Scotland, DigTech LLC, Cultural Media, and the Archaeology Podcast Network, and was edited by Rachel Roden.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.arcpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.